My sister mocked me at her office gala. She's just a freelancer, she doesn't belong here. I nodded. Then the CEO raised his glass and said, "To the woman who saved this company last quarter." My sister choked on her champagne. "I don't know why you came," Camille whispered to me, lips barely moving, her champagne flute trembling slightly in her fingers. "I was invited," I said simply, watching her eyes flit nervously around the candlelit rooftop terrace. "Freelancers don't belong here," she added, her voice cool, her smile plastered for the benefit of the passing VP. I didn't respond. I just looked back toward the stage where the CEO had just stepped up to the microphone. And then he raised his glass. "To the woman who saved this company last quarter. To Nadia Everhart." Camille froze. And then she choked, audibly, dramatically, on her champagne. I never really fit into Camille's world, and to be honest, I stopped trying a long time ago. I'm 42, divorced, no kids, and have been freelancing for over a decade now. I specialize in crisis communications and corporate cleanups, the kind of work companies don't like to talk about publicly, but when something goes terribly wrong, they call people like me to make sure it doesn't spiral further. My sister Camille is 37 and lives in a very different orbit. She works for a high-end marketing firm based in Midtown Manhattan. The kind of place with slick glass walls, catered lunch every day, and an HR department trained more in optics than people skills. She was always the golden child. First to land a job with benefits, first to get engaged, first to throw a Pinterest-worthy baby shower even though she doesn't have kids. Our parents doted on her. When I decided to leave a PR firm and freelance full-time, they told me to stop playing games. When they passed, Dad first, then Mom a year later, Camille and I drifted. We weren't close to begin with, but with no one holding the rope between us, we became polite strangers. We texted occasionally, mostly about estate matters. Birthdays were acknowledged with emojis and an exclamation point. Holidays were quiet. After my divorce 5 years ago, she didn't ask how I was holding up. She sent a thumbs up when I told her I was moving back into the city. So you can imagine my surprise when she called me, voice dripping with polite distance, and said, "Hey, I'm inviting a few people to my firm's gala next month. You should come. Maybe you can network or something." I hesitated. She pressed, "There'll be execs there. Might be good for your business. Just, dress nice." I had no intention of going until that last line. Dress nice. Like I'm not capable of it. Like I'm the weird older sister who doesn't know what a curling iron is. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the subtle dig. But I RSVP'd yes. What Camille didn't know, what no one at her firm knew, including her, was that I had just spent the last 3 weeks consulting for her company's top brass on a leak that could have tanked their Q1 numbers. The call came from Elliot Renner, the CEO. A high-level leak of a confidential client strategy had gone viral internally, and someone had tipped off a journalist. My name was passed to him through a contact at another agency I'd helped a year before. Everything had to be quiet. No internal staff. No emails. No paper trail. I spent weeks in my apartment, cross-referencing access logs, identifying digital footprints, and helping the executive team craft messaging for when the leak eventually broke, if it ever did. In the end, I found the mole, a bitter junior account manager who was being poached by a competitor and wanted to hamper a product launch on her way out. The company contained the leak. The board remained intact. And I signed an NDA that meant no one could talk about it, least of all me. Elliot promised me a personal thank you and wired a generous sum to my account. I filed it away as another ghost success. Until the gala invitation arrived. I showed up in a dark green floor-length gown I'd bought once for a black tie fundraiser with my ex-husband. I still loved the way it fit. My hair was up. Makeup was subtle. I looked, I dare say, like I belonged. Camille greeted me at the rooftop entrance like someone running PR for a problematic guest. "You look nice," she said, lips tight. "Let's grab a drink." We wandered through a maze of suits and polished smiles. People were laughing, mingling, trading stories about client wins and ad campaigns. She introduced me to a couple of her coworkers. "This is my sister," she said lightly. "She is a freelancer. Doesn't really have a job, but she does some kind of media thing." I smiled politely. They nodded and asked about the weather. I wasn't surprised. Camille never saw freelancing as real work. She assumed it was a phase. Eventually, I'd settle down with a real employer and finally join the grown-up table. I think she liked the idea of being more successful than me. The stability, the structure, the title. She wore it all like armor. At one point, she leaned in during a lull in conversation and said, "Just don't talk to Elliot, okay? Tonight's a big deal for me. I don't want you making it weird." I just nodded. Inside, I was smiling. Later in the evening, as the champagne was flowing and a jazz trio played something low and moody, Elliot took the stage. The whole crowd quieted instantly. Camille stood straight, clearly expecting a shout-out for the campaign she'd led. Elliot looked out across the crowd, his voice clear and steady. "I want to take a moment to thank someone. This past quarter nearly broke us. We had a leak, a serious one, and it could have cost us millions and our biggest client. But one person stepped in. Quietly. Effectively. She isn't on our staff roster. She doesn't sit in our boardrooms. But she saved us." People began to murmur. I saw Camille's brows furrow slightly. "To the woman who saved this company last quarter, Nadia Everhart." The room turned. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just met Camille's eyes. That's when it happened. Her breath hitched. Her hand, mid-sip, faltered. And then she choked, violently, on her champagne. Victor, her fiancé, started patting her back in confusion. Someone handed her a napkin. She recovered quickly, but the damage was done. Every eye that had once been on her had shifted. People approached me that night. Quietly. Curious. A couple of junior execs asked what I did exactly. One offered his card. Camille stayed at the bar, her back to the room, pretending to scroll through her phone. Later, as I was leaving, Victor stopped me. "So, you really helped Elliot? Like, for real?" "For real," I said, buttoning my coat. He looked genuinely surprised. "Huh. Camille never mentioned that." "No," I said. "I'm sure she didn't." As the elevator doors closed behind me, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: complete. Not vindicated. Not victorious. Just complete. I had nothing to prove anymore. Not to Camille. Not to our parents' ghosts. Not even to myself. I didn't hear from Camille the next day. Or the day after that. It wasn't entirely unexpected. When Camille doesn't have control of the narrative, she retreats. She's not the type to confront anything head-on unless she knows she'll win. Growing up, she was the queen of rewriting history. If she got in trouble, she spun the story so cleverly that even our parents started second-guessing what they saw with their own eyes. I think that's what made her so successful in corporate. You don't rise that fast in Manhattan marketing without knowing how to frame every moment. But what happened at the gala? She couldn't rewrite that. There were too many witnesses. That week, I focused on work. I had 3 inquiries in my inbox by Monday morning. Apparently, word had spread, discreetly, but unmistakably, that I'd been the one to stop a multi-million-dollar PR disaster before it broke. In my line of work, that's all it takes: one powerful CEO with gratitude and a long contact list. On Wednesday, I got a text from Camille. "Did you know it was my gala?" No greeting. No emojis. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. It was such a Camille thing to say, possessive, petty, and entirely missing the point. She had made the evening about her from the start, even when it was meant to be a company-wide event. She was the kind of person who thought your presence in her space needed an explanation. That's how she saw it, her space. I didn't respond. That Friday, I got a call from Elliot. It wasn't about work. He was checking in, asking if I'd be open to coming in again to consult for another issue brewing internally, this one less dramatic but still delicate. You were a pleasure to work with, he said, his voice warm. I meant it when I raised that toast. You saved us. We chatted for a bit. I agreed to a limited contract, 4 weeks, 3 days a week, remote optional. It paid well. More importantly, it was fulfilling. By the second week of my new contract, Camille reached out again. This time, it was a call. I let it go to voicemail. She left one. Hey. Look, I don't know what to say. I guess. Congrats or whatever. I didn't know you were involved with the company like that. It just surprised me. Anyway. Maybe we should talk? It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. I didn't call back. I needed more than just a vague congrats or whatever. I needed her to recognize, not just that she'd been wrong, but that she had built her entire perception of me on assumptions that were years out of date. Camille had always seen me as this drifting, unstable person. Someone who never settled down, who couldn't keep a job, who dated the wrong men, who lived in an apartment instead of owning a brownstone. But she never looked deeper. She never saw the work I did, the people I helped, the clients who trusted me with their reputations, their livelihoods. And most of all, she never asked. When our parents died, we both inherited a modest sum. Camille used hers for a down payment on her Upper West Side condo. I invested mine into my consultancy, built a website, hired a part-time assistant, and slowly carved out a reputation in the shadows of other people's headlines. I didn't need her validation, but I had always quietly hoped for it. Her silence after the gala told me she wasn't ready to give it. But things began to shift. I got an invite to speak on a panel at NYU about digital crisis management. Then a podcast request. Then a feature in a niche business magazine under the headline, The Invisible Architects Behind Corporate Survival. My name was in it. My photo, too. A few days after that article ran, Camille called again. This time, I answered. She started light. Saw your article. Nice headshot. Thanks, I said. Silence filled the space between us. She sighed. Look, I know I've been off. I didn't say anything. She needed to fill the silence. I didn't know you were that involved. I mean, Elliot never said your name. Not to me, anyway. He wasn't allowed to. Right. NDAs and all that, she said, then paused. So, you've been doing this kind of work for a while? Over 10 years, I said. She was quiet again. I could almost hear the machinery in her mind grinding to recalibrate what she thought she knew about me. I guess I just assumed, she trailed off. You always did, I said, not harshly, just plainly. Another pause. I guess I owe you an apology. Yes, I said, still calm. You do. She exhaled. I'm sorry. For the way I introduced you. For the way I've treated your work. For being kind of a jerk. That's a start. There was no warmth in my tone, but no venom either. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just wasn't offering her an easy out. I've always felt like I needed to prove something, she admitted. Even to you. I think I looked at your life and just didn't get it. It didn't fit into my version of success. It doesn't have to, I said. She let that sink in. Then she changed the subject. Mom and Dad would have been proud of you, you know. I wasn't sure if that was true. They were traditional. They liked clear paths and respectable titles. But maybe, in the end, pride would have come from the impact I made, not the label on my door. Maybe, I said. She asked if I wanted to meet for coffee next week. I said I'd think about it. And I did. I did meet her for coffee. We picked a place on neutral ground, a cozy cafe in Gramercy that neither of us had sentimental ties to. It was halfway between her office and my apartment, one of those corner cafes with overstuffed armchairs, too many plants, and the hum of a milk steamer every few minutes. Not her usual scene. Too messy, I imagined. But she didn't complain. That, in itself, was unusual. She arrived first. I spotted her at a window seat, wearing her usual fitted blazer and silk blouse, like she had come from a meeting she couldn't quite escape mentally. I wore jeans, boots, and a sweater. Comfortable. Practical. The kind of clothes that say, I work, but I don't have to prove it. Camille smiled, an awkward, slightly rehearsed smile, but it was something. She stood, hugged me, quick and tight, like she wasn't sure how to do it anymore. We both ordered lattes. She went for almond milk. I was stuck with the whole thing. So, she started, stirring her cup unnecessarily. You've been busy. I nodded. It's been a good quarter. I read that article 3 times, she admitted. I had no idea your work was that involved. You never asked. She winced slightly. Fair. There was a beat of silence before she continued. I always thought you were kind of floating through life. I guess I didn't know how to see you as anything else. I know, I said. But I wasn't floating. I just wasn't living the way you expected me to. She nodded. I could tell she'd been thinking about this, rehearsing, even. That didn't surprise me. Camille was always strategic. She didn't have a casual confrontation. She prepared remarks. I think I was scared, she said finally. Scared that your way might actually make more sense than mine. That caught me off guard. You always looked so. Sure, she went on. Even when everything in your life looked chaotic from the outside. And I thought, what if she actually knows something I don't? I looked at her carefully. Her face was open in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. Maybe not since before high school, back when we used to share secrets from opposite sides of the bunk beds in our grandparents' cottage. You built something for yourself, she continued. Without any of the things I relied on. No corporate ladder, no mentors, no. Victor. At the mention of her fiancé, I raised an eyebrow. She caught it. We postponed the wedding, she said casually, as though she was announcing a delay in dry cleaning. Oh. It's been a long time coming. We're in different places. Or maybe we were never in the same one. I didn't press. I knew better than to dig too fast. Was it the gala? I asked after a moment. She gave a half smile. It helped clarify some things. Like how much of my life is built on performance. That surprised me more than anything else she'd said. I'm not saying I'm going to quit my job and become a consultant, she added with a laugh. But I've been thinking about what actually makes me proud of myself. And honestly? Lately, not much. We sipped our drinks in silence. The cafe buzzed around us, quiet conversations, clinking cups, steam hissing. Outside, the clouds were low, casting a silvery tone across the street. I think I just want to understand you more, she said softly. Not compete with you. Not judging you. Just know who you are. That would be a first, I said, not unkindly. She nodded. I deserve that. It wasn't everything. It wasn't a clean slate or a tearful reunion. But it was honest. More honest than we'd been in decades. When we parted that day, we didn't hug again. We didn't make promises. But there was something different in the way we walked away, no tension, no unfinished business swirling between us like smoke. A week later, she sent me a photo. It was a picture of us from when we were kids, standing on the lawn at our grandmother's place, each holding a melting popsicle, arms around each other's shoulders. She captioned it, trying to remember this version of us. Hope we can find her again. I stared at it for a long time. Maybe we could. But that wouldn't happen in one coffee or one apology. It would happen in the quiet in-between moments, in showing up differently, consistently, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe Camille wanted to. I didn't reply to the photo right away. Not because I was angry, more because I needed space to figure out what I felt. Forgiveness isn't always cinematic. Sometimes it's slow and strange, a silent shift in the heart that you barely notice until something small, like a photo, forces you to stop and take stock. Still, something had changed. Camille started reaching out more. Not with dramatic declarations or long emotional texts, just small things. Articles she thought I'd like. A funny memory. Once, even a screenshot of an email chain at her office where someone had misused a buzzword and she knew I'd roll my eyes. They were small bridges. Not long enough to cross, but long enough to see each other more clearly. Meanwhile, my work kept picking up. The company from the Gala had hired me again. Then another one came knocking, this time a private equity firm based in DC. They'd had a top executive arrested and were trying to reframe the narrative, as they so delicately put it. It was messy, but it was kind of messy. I said yes. One afternoon, a few months after the Gala, I got a call from Camille out of the blue. "Hey," she said, a little breathless. "I have a weird question." "Okay. Do you do, like, private brand management for individuals?" I laughed. "That's vague." She groaned. "Okay, fine. I mean, do you help people like me?" "What kind of help are we talking about?" "My company is restructuring. There are rumors about layoffs, promotions, and some roles merging. It's political. I'm not panicking, but I want to position myself in a way that keeps me from getting sidelined." I paused. "You want me to help with your internal positioning?" "Yes. You want me, your embarrassing freelancer sister, to help you protect your brand. Inside your own company." She chuckled, sheepish. "Yes. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to need that in writing," I teased. "Preferably framed." There was a pause. Then, quietly, "I deserve that." "You do," I said. "But I'll help you." And I did. We met weekly at that same cafe in Gramercy. I helped her draft emails, reframe her internal pitch decks, and rebrand some of her contributions so they tied back to company objectives. We prepared her for difficult meetings, practiced how to claim credit without sounding aggressive, and how to navigate office politics with more strategy and less ego. Camille hated being coached at first, especially by me. But over time, she softened. She started to listen more, interrupting less. It wasn't just that she was taking my advice, it was that she finally respected where it came from. Around the same time, the private equity firm I'd been working with offered me a long-term retainer. It was the kind of offer I never thought I'd see: stable money, prestigious clients, full creative control, and the freedom to walk away if things got political. I took it. And then something unexpected happened. Delacroix and Carr, the same firm where Camille worked, announced a major restructuring. 3 of the partners were stepping down. Elliot was retiring, earlier than anyone expected. Camille had thought she was in the running for a VP slot. She wasn't. She called me the next morning. "They passed me over," she said, hollow. "For someone who's only been here 2 years. Did they give you a reason?" "They said I didn't have the strategic foresight they were looking for." I was quiet. That was the same line they used when they quietly phased out people they saw as liabilities. She sighed. "I think they're pushing me out slowly. No one's saying it, but I can feel it." "I'm sorry," I said. And I meant it. But then, she asked something I didn't expect. "What would you do if it were you?" "I'd leave before they can write the ending for me." Silence. Then, "Would you? Would you consider bringing me into your firm?" I blinked. You want to work with me? She exhaled. I want to learn from you. Now that was satisfying. Not because I wanted to rub it in. Not because I wanted her to suffer. But because this was real. Not a performance. Not a power play. Just my sister, finally seeing me. I told her I'd think about it. I spent a week going over it in my head. The pros. The cons. The history. Eventually, I agreed on one condition. She wouldn't come in as my equal. She'd come in as my assistant for the first 6 months. I needed to see if she could take direction, follow through, and, most of all, treat my work with the seriousness it deserved. She didn't love it. But she accepted. And it worked. Camille, for all her bravado, was sharp. Organized. Quick. She hated the idea of fetching coffees and proofreading my reports at first, but over time, she came to appreciate the substance behind the flash. The long nights. The research. The calm voice on a call when everything is burning. Eventually, I promoted her. She earned it. By then, she didn't need a title to feel important. She just wanted to do work that mattered. And me? I finally had something better than revenge. I had her respect. And she had something better than status. She had me, her sister. The one she used to laugh at. The one who now signed her paychecks. The one who, without lifting a single cruel finger, became her mentor. And in the end, that was more satisfying than any toast at any gala. Because success, when you don't scream it, when you live it so quietly that others choke on their own assumptions, tastes a lot better than champagne.